I've always loved motorcycles. First riders I remember were the Chicago Outlaws. They charged headlong through downtown Chicago streets, all black and chrome and straight pipes blasting. They weaved through traffic, greasy denim kings on shiny metal horses. They owned the road, and they transfixed my 14-year-old soul. About a year after I saw them, I got my first bike, a Whizzer, and I taught myself how to ride and how to fix it. I graduated from that to a James 125, and then I had a long string of bikes, an Indian 80, some Harleys, a Triumph, a BSA 500 single, an Ariel Square 4. As I neared 40, I still had bikes, an Osa Trials bike for the dirt, a Honda Goldwing for the interstates, and a Yamaha SR 500 for carving the canyons. For a little while in my early 20s, I worked as a bike mechanic, and along the way I built a few fast motor drag bikes and raced them in the streets. Mostly the bikes I rode were street rats. A couple years after I fell in love with bikes, I fell in love with cameras and photography. When I got into the movie business, my love of all things mechanical was lavished on cranes and cameras and lenses. I spent years in production, determined to be a director of photography, but becoming more and more involved in technology until finally I was the EVP Technical Marketing and Strategy for Panavision. A lot of my job was making the new and then incomprehensible digital cameras understandable to a generation of filmmakers wedded to film. For a long time then, that was my life, and I loved it. Somewhere along the line, though, I lost my desire to ride. The last three bikes, the Goldwing, the Osa, and the SR 500 sat in my garage, and slowly it became clear I wasn't riding anymore, so one by one I sold them. The Wing was easy. It was a pig, wallowing and scraping in the canyon corners when I tried to muscle it around, and boring as could be out on the highway where it rolled along mile after mile without my paying attention. I'd never much liked it. The Osa I loved, but it was a long trailer ride from Hollywood out to the dirt to where I could catch a few hours of fun in the hills. The SR was the toughest and the last one I let go. Nimble, quick, and sticky in the corners, a surprise to lots of guys that thought their big canyon carvers could get through the tight stuff faster. I loved that bike. The first Japanese iron I ever felt good on. But then it was sitting there too, so bye-bye. After they were gone, I made noises about getting another bike, but instead, I had a business and a wife and children, and that was more than enough. The years passed, and finally, I was finished working for others. I turned back to photography, the work I had fallen in love with about the same time I fell in love with bikes, and I began to write. A lot of what I wrote was about the adventures of my life, so sometimes motorcycles figured in the stories. And as I looked for pictures of bikes I loved to illustrate my stories, it came back to me how much I'd loved them. I felt my connection to the metal, to the smells, and to the sounds. My muscle memory knew exactly what it felt like to straight-leg kick a Harley and when to crank the spark advance as the motor caught. I knew the feeling in my wrist as I twisted the throttle, and I remembered the sensation of a good motor, one that beats like a giant heart as it propels you faster. The thing is, a motorcycle is many things at once. It's the weight beneath you, the music of the pipes, the thumping pulses that fill your body as the motor winds its way up. It's the wind that comes to meet you as you shift through the gears, the sound of tires and chains and road, the smell of hot oil and metal. All these things and more fill your being at the same moment, leaving a lifelong impression, a symphony of the senses like no other. That symphony plays in my head as I write these words, and each part of it is alive in my life. I know what the Chicago bikers felt like that day as they roared through the downtown streets. They felt alive and fiercely free. I loved motorcycles from the first moment I saw them, and to this day I still do.